Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan, Part 2, The Seventh Stage. They had them also to the place where they saw one fool and one wantwit washing an Ethiopian, with intention to make him white. But the more they washed him, the blacker he was. Then they asked the shepherds what that should mean. So they told them, saying, "Thus it is with the vile person. All means used to get such a one a good name shall in conclusion tend but to make him more abominable. Thus it was with the Pharisees, and so it shall be with all hypocrites." Then said Mercy, the wife of Matthew, to Christiana her mother, "Mother, I would, if it might be, see the hole in the hill, or that commonly called the byway to hell." So her mother brake her mind to the shepherds. Then they went to the door. It was on the side of an hill, and they opened it and bid Mercy hearken a while. So she hearkened and heard one saying, "Cursed be my father for holding of my feet back from the way of peace and life." Another said, "Oh, that I had been torn in pieces before I had, to save my life, lost my soul." And another said, "If I were to live again, how would I deny myself rather than to come to this place?" And another said, "If I were to live again, how would I deny myself rather than to come to this place?" Then there was as if the very earth groaned and quaked under the feet of this young woman for fear. So she looked white and came trembling away, saying, "Blessed be he and she that is delivered from this place." Now when the shepherds had shown them all these things, then they had them back to the palace and entertained them with what the house would afford. But Mercy, being a young and married woman, longed for something that she saw there, but was ashamed to ask. Her mother-in-law then asked her what she ailed, for she looked at one not well. Then said Mercy, "There is a looking glass hangs up in the dining room, of which I cannot take my mind. If, therefore, I have it not, I think I shall miscarry." Then said her mother, "I will mention thy wants to the shepherds, and they will not deny thee." But she said, "I am ashamed that these men should know that I longed." "Nay, my daughter," said she, "it is no shame but a virtue to long for such a thing as that." So Mercy said, "Then, mother, if you please, ask the shepherds if they are willing to sell it." Now the glass was 1 of 1,000. It would present a man one way with his own features exactly, and turn it but another way, and it would show one the very face and similitude of the Prince of Pilgrims himself. Yes, I have talked with them that can tell, and they have said that they have seen the very crown of thorns upon his head by looking in the glass. They have therefore They have therein also seen the holes in his hands, his feet, and his side. They have therein also seen his holes in his hands, his feet, and his side. Yeah, such an excellency is there in this glass that it will show him to one where they have a mind to see him, whether living or dead, whether in earth or in heaven, whether in a state of humiliation or in his exaltation, whether coming to suffer or coming to reign. James 1:23, 1 Corinthians 13:12, 2 Corinthians 3:18. Christiana therefore went to the shepherds apart. Now the names of the shepherds were Knowledge, Experience, Watchful, and Sincere, and said unto them, There is one of my daughters, a breeding woman, that I think doth long for something that she hath seen in this house, and she thinks that she shall miscarry if she should by you be denied. Experience. Call her. She shall assuredly have what we can help her to. So they called her and said to her, Mercy, what is that thing thou wouldst have? Then she blushed and said, The great glass that hangs up in the dining room. So Sincere ran and fetched it, and with a joyful consent it was given her. Then she bowed her head and gave thanks and said, By this I know that I have obtained favor in your eyes. They also gave to the other young women such things as they desired, and to their husbands great commendations, for that they had joined with Mr. Greatheart in the slaying of Jane Despair and the demolishing of Doubting Castle. About Christiana's neck the shepherds put a bracelet, and so did they about the necks of her 4 daughters. Also they put earrings in their ears and jewels on their foreheads. When they were minded to go hence, they let them go in peace, but gave not to them those certain cautions which before were given to Christian and his companion. The reason was for that these had great heart to be their guide, who was one that was well acquainted with things, and so could give them their cautions more seasonably, to wit, even when the danger was nigh the approaching. What cautions Christian and his companion had received of the shepherds, they had also lost, by that the time was come that they had need to put them in practice. Wherefore, here was the advantage that this company had over the other. From thence they went on singing, and they said, Behold, how fitly are the stages set for their relief that pilgrims are become, and how they us receive without one let, that make the other life our mark and home. What novelties they have to us they give, that we, though pilgrims, joyful lives may live. They do upon us too such things bestow, that show we pilgrims are wherever we go. The 8th stage. When they were gone from the shepherds, they quickly came to the place where Christian met with one turnaway that dwelt in the town of Apostasy. Wherefore of him Mr. Greatheart, their guide, now put them in mind, saying, This is the place where Christian met with one turnaway. This is the place where Christian met with one turnaway, who carried with him the character of his rebellion at his back, and this I have to say concerning this man, he would hearken to no counsel, but once a falling persuasion could not stop him. But once a falling persuasion could not stop him. When he came to the place where the cross and sepulchre were, he did meet with one that did bid him look there, but he gnashed with his teeth and stamped and said he was resolved to go back to his own town. Before he came to the gate, he met with evangelist, who offered to lay hands on him to turn him into the way again. But this turnaway resisted him, and having done much despite unto him, he got away over the wall, and so escaped his hand. Then they went on, and just at the place where little faith formerly was robbed, there stood a man with his sword drawn and his face all over the blood. Then said Mr. Greatheart, Who art thou? The man made answer, saying, I am one whose name is Valiant for Truth. I am a pilgrim, and am going to the celestial city. Now, as I was in my way, there were 3 men that did beset me, and propounded unto me these 3 things. 1. Whether I would become one of them. 2. Or go back from whence I came. 3. Or die upon the place. Proverb 1:11-14. To the first I answered, I had been a true man for a long season, and therefore it could not be expected that I should now cast in my lot with thieves. Then they demanded what I would say to the second. So I told them that the place from whence I came had I not found incommodity there. I had not forsaken it at all, but finding it altogether unsuitable to me and very unprofitable for me, I forsook it for this way. Then they asked me what I said to the third, and I told them my life cost far more dear than that I should lightly give it away. Besides, you have nothing to do thus to put things to my choice. Wherefore, at your peril, be it if you meddle. Then these 3, to wit, Wildhead, Inconsiderate, and Pragmatic, drew upon me, and I also drew upon them. So we fell to it, 1 against 3, for the space of about 3 hours. They have left upon me, as you see, some of the marks of their valor, and have also carried away with them some of mine. They are but just now gone. I suppose they might, as the saying is, hear your horse dash, and so they betook themselves to fight. Mr. Greatheart, but here was great odds, 3 against 1. Valiant for truth. It is true, but little and more are nothing to him that has the truth on his side. Though an host should encamp against me, said one. Psalm 23, Psalm 27:3, Psalm 27:3. My heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident, etc. Besides, said he, I have read in some records that one man has fought an army, and how many did Samson slay with the jawbone of an ass? Mr. Greatheart. Then said the guide, Why did you not cry out that some might have come in for your succor? Valiant for truth. So I did to my king, who I knew could hear me and afford invisible help, and that was sufficient for me. Mr. Greatheart. Then said Mr. Greatheart, to Mr. Valiant for truth. Then said Greatheart to Mr. Valiant for truth, Thou hast worthily behaved thyself. Let me see thy sword. So he showed it him. When he had taken it in his hand and looked thereon awhile, he said, Ha! It is a right Jerusalem blade. Valiant for truth. It is so. Let a man have one of these blades with a hand to wield it and skill to use it, and he may venture upon an angel with it. He need not fear its holding if he can but tell how to lay on. Its edge will never blunt. It will cut flesh and bones and soul and spirit and all. Hebrews 4:12. Mr. Greatheart, but you fought a great while. I wonder you was not weary. Valiant for truth. I fought till my sword did cleave to my hand, and then they were joined together as if a sword grew out of my arm, and when the blood ran through my fingers, then I fought with most courage. Valiant for truth. I fought till my sword did cleave to my hand, and then they were joined together as if a sword grew out of my arm, and when the blood ran through my fingers, then I fought with most courage. Mr. Greatheart, thou hast done well, thou hast resisted unto blood, striving against sin. Thou shalt abide by us. Come in and go out with us, for we are thy companions. Then they took him and washed his wounds and gave him of what they had to refresh him, and so they went together. Now as they went on, because Mr. Greatheart was delighted in him, for he loved one greatly that he found to be a man of his hands, and because there were in company those that were feeble and weak, therefore he questioned with him about many things at first. What countryman he was? Valiant for truth. I am of dark land, for there was I born, and there my father and mother are still. Mr. Greatheart. Dark land, said the guide. Doth not that lie on the same coast with the city of destruction? Valiant for truth. Yes, it doth. Now that which caused me to come on pilgrimage was this. We had one Mr. Teltrue come into our parts, and he told it about what Christian had done, that went from the city of destruction, namely, how he had forsaken his wife and children and had betaken himself to a pilgrim's life. It was also confidently reported how he had killed a serpent. That did come out to resist him in his journey, and how he got through to whither he intended. It was also told what welcome he had at all his lord's lodgings, especially when he came to the gates of the celestial city. For there, said the man, he was received with sound of trumpet by a company of shining ones. He told also how all the bells in the city did ring for joy at his reception, and what golden garments he was clothed with many other things that now I shall forbear to relate. In a word, that man so told the story of Christian and his travels that my heart fell into a burning haste to be gone after him, nor could father or mother stay me. So I got from them and am come thus far on my way. Mr. Greatheart, you come in at the gate, did you not? Valiant for truth. Yes, yes, for the same man also told us that all would be nothing if we did not begin to enter this way at the gate. Mr. Greatheart, look you, said the guide to Christiana, the pilgrimage of your husband, and what he has gotten thereby is spread abroad far and near. Valiant for truth. Why is this Christian's wife? Mr. Greatheart, yes, that it is, and these also are his 4 sons. Valiant for truth. What? And going on pilgrimage too, Mr. Greatheart. Yes, verily, they are following after. Valiant for truth. It glads me at the heart. Good man, how joyful will he be when he shall see them that would not go with him, yet to enter after him in at the gates into the celestial city. Mr. Greatheart, without doubt it will be a comfort to him, for next to the joy of seeing himself there, it will be a joy to meet there his wife and children. Valiant for truth. But now you are upon that, pray let me hear your opinion about it. Some make a question whether we shall know one another when we are there. Mr. Greatheart, do you think they shall know themselves then, or that they shall rejoice to see themselves in that bliss? And if they think they shall know and do this, why not know others and rejoice in their welfare also? Again, since relations are our second self, though that state will be dissolved there, yet why may it not be rationally concluded that we shall be more glad to see them there than to see they are wanting? Valiant for truth. Well, I perceive whereabouts you are as to this. Have you any more things to ask me about my beginning to come on pilgrimage? Mr. Greatheart. Yes. Were your father and mother willing that you should become a pilgrim? Valiant for truth. Oh no, they used all means imaginable to persuade me to stay at home. Mr. Greatheart. Why? What could they say against it? Valiant for truth. They said it was an idle life, and if I myself were not inclined to sloth and laziness, I would never countenance a pilgrim's condition. Mr. Greatheart. And what did they say else? Valiant for truth. Why, they told me that it was a dangerous way. Yeah, the most dangerous way in the world, said they, is that which the pilgrims go. Valiant for truth. Yes, that is, yes, and that in many particulars. Valiant for truth. Yes, and that in many particulars. Mr. Greatheart, name some of them. Valiant for truth. They told me of the slot of despond where Christian was well nigh smothered. They told me that there were archers standing ready in Beelzebub castle to shoot them who should knock at the wicket gate for entrance. They told me also of the wood and dark mountains of the hill difficulty, of the lions, and also of the three giants, Bloody Man, Maul, and Slaygood. They said, moreover, that there was a foul fiend haunted the valley of humiliation, and that Christian was by him almost bereft of life. Besides, said they, you must go over the valley of shadow of death, where the hobgoblins are, where the light is darkness, where the way is full of snares, pits, traps, and gins. They told me also of giant despair, of doubting castle, and of the ruin that the pilgrims met with here. Further, they said I must go over the enchanted ground which was dangerous, and that after all this, I should find a river over which there was no bridge, and that river did lie betwixt me and the celestial country. Mr. Greatheart. And was this all? Valiant for truth. No. They also told me that this way was full of deceivers and of persons that lay in wait there to turn good men out of the path. Mr. Greatheart. But how did they make that out? Valiant for truth. They told me that Mr. Worldly Wise Men did lie there in wait to deceive. They said also that there were formality and hypocrisy continually on the road. They said also that Byans, talkative or Demas, would go near to gather me up, that the flatterer would catch me in his net, or that with green-headed ignorance I would presume to go on to the gate, from whence he was sent back to the hole that was in the side of the hill, and made to go the byway to hell. Mr. Greatheart. I promise you this was enough to discourage you, but did they make an end here? Valiant for truth. No, stay. They told me also of many that had tried that way of old, and that had gone a great way therein, to see if they could find something of the glory there that so many had so much talked of from time to time, and how they came back again and befooled themselves for setting a foot out of doors in that path, to the satisfaction of all the country. And they named several that did so, as obstinate and pliable, mistrust and timorous, turnaway and old atheist, with several more, who they said had some of them gone far to see what they could find, but not one of them had found so much advantage by going as amounted to the weight of a feather. Mr. Greatheart. Said they anything more to discourage you? Valiant for truth. Yes, they told me of one Mr. Fearing, who was a pilgrim, and how he found his way so solitary that he never had a comfortable hour therein. Also, that Mr. Despondency had like to have been starved therein. Yeah, and also, which I had almost forgot, that Christian himself, about whom there has been such a noise, after all his adventures for a celestial crown, was certainly drowned in the Black River and never went a foot further, however it was smothered up. Mr. Greatheart. And did none of these things discourage you? Valiant for truth. No, they seemed but as so many nothings to me. Mr. Greatheart. How came that about? Valiant for truth. Why, I still believed what Mr. Teltrue had said, and that carried me beyond them all. Mr. Greatheart. Then this was your victory, even your faith. valiant for truth. It was so I believed, and therefore came out, going to the way, fought all that set themselves against me, and by believing am come to this place. Who would true valor see, let him come hither. One here will constant be. Come wind, come weather, there's no discouragement shall make him once relent. His first avowed intent to be a pilgrim. Whoso beset him round with dismal stories, do but themselves confound his strength the more is. No lion can him fright, he will with a giant fight, but he will have a right to be a pilgrim. Hobgoblin nor foul fiend can daunt his spirit. He knows he at the end shall life inherit. Then fancies fly away. He will not fear what men say. He will labor night and day to be a pilgrim. By this time they were got to the enchanted ground, where the air naturally tended to make one drowsy, and that place was all grown over with briars and thorns, excepting here and there, where was an enchanted arbor, upon which if a man sits, or in which if a man sleeps, it is a question, some say, whether ever he shall rise or wake again in this world. Over this forest, therefore, they went both one and another, and Mr. Greatheart went before, for that he was the guide, and Mr. Valiant for truth came behind, being rear guard, for fear lest peradventure some fiend or dragon or giant or thief should fall upon their rear, and so do mischief. They went on here, each man with his sword drawn in his hand, but they knew it was a dangerous place. Also they cheered up one another as well as they could. Feeble mind, Mr. Greatheart commanded should come up after him, and Mr. Despondency was under the eye of Mr. Valiant. Now they had not gone far, but a great mist and darkness fell upon them all, so that they could scarce for a great while the one see the other. Wherefore they were forced for some time to feel one for another by words, for they walked not by sight. But anyone must think that here was but sorry going for the best of them all. But how much worse for the women and children, who both of feet and heart were but tender. But how much worse for the women and children, who both of feet and heart were but tender. Yet so it was that through the encouraging words of him that led in the front and of him that brought them up behind, they made a pretty good shift to wag along. The way also here was very wearisome through dirt and slabbiness. Nor was there on all this ground so much as one inn or victualling house wherein to refresh the feebler sort. Here, therefore, was grunting and puffing and sighing, while one tumbleth over a bush, another sticks fast in the dirt, and the children, some of them, lost their shoes in the mire, while one cries out, I am down, and another, Oh, where are you? And the third, the bushes have got such fast hold on me, I think I cannot get away from them. I think I cannot get away from them. Then they came at an arbor, warm and promising, much refreshing to the pilgrims, for it was finely wrought above head, beautified with greens, finished with benches and settles. It also had in it a soft couch whereon the weary might lean. This, you must think, all things considered, was tempting, for the pilgrims already began to be foiled with the badness of the way. But there was not one of them that made so much as a motion to stop there. Yeah, for aught I could perceive, they continually gave so good heed to the advice of their guide, and he did so faithfully tell them of dangers and of the nature of the dangers when they were at them, that usually when they were nearest to them, they did most pluck up their spirits and hearten one another to deny the flesh. This arbor was called the slothful's friend, and was made on purpose to allure, if it might be, some of the pilgrims there to take up their rest when weary. I saw them in my dream that they went on in this their solitary ground till they came to a place at which a man is apt to lose his way. Now, though when it was light, their guide could well enough tell how to miss those ways that led wrong, yet in the dark he was put to a stand. But he had in his pocket a map of all ways leading to or from the celestial city, wherefore he struck a light, for he never goes without his tinderbox also, and takes a view of his book or map, which binds him to be careful in that place to turn to the right hand. And had he not been careful here to look in his map, they had all, in probability, been smothered in the mud, for just a little before them, and that at the end of the cleanest way too was a pit, none knows how deep, full of nothing but mud. They are made on purpose to destroy the pilgrim's sin. Then thought I with myself, who that goeth on pilgrimage, but would have one of these maps about him, that he may look when he is at a stand, which is the way he must take. Then they went on in this enchanted ground till they came to where there was another arbor, and it was built by the highway side. And in that arbor there lay two men whose names were Heedless and Too Bold. These two went thus far on pilgrimage, but here being wearied with their journey, they sat down to rest themselves, and so fell fast asleep. When the pilgrims saw them, they stood still and shook their heads, for they knew that the sleepers were in a pitiful case. Then They consulted what to do, whether to go on and leave them in their sleep or to step to them and try to awake them. So they concluded to go to them and awake them, that is, if they could, but with this caution, namely, to take heed that they themselves did not sit down or embrace the offered benefit of that arbor. So they went in and spake to the men and called each by his name, for the guide, it seems, did know them. But there was no voice nor answer. Then the guide did shake them and do what he could to disturb them. Then said one of them, I will pay you when I take my money. Then said one of them, I will pay you when I take my money. At which the guide shook his head. I will fight so long as I can hold my sword in my hand, said the other. At that one of the children laughed. Then said Christiana, what is the meaning of this? The guide said, they talk in their sleep. If you strike them, beat them, or whatever else you do to them, they will answer you after this fashion. Or, as one of them said in old time, when the waves of the sea did beat upon him, and he slept as one upon the mast of a ship. Proverbs 23:34 and 35. When I awake, I will seek it yet again. You know, when men talk in their sleep, they say anything, but their words are not governed either by faith or reason. There is an incoherency in their words now, as there was before, betwixt their going on pilgrimage and sitting down here. This, then, is the mischief of it. When heedless ones go on pilgrimage, it is 20-1. But they are served thus. But this enchanted ground is one of the last refuges that the enemy to pilgrims has. Wherefore it is, as you see, placed almost at the end of the way, and so it standeth against us with the more advantage. For when thinks the enemy, will these fools be so desirous to sit down as when they are weary, and when so like to be weary as one almost at their journey's end. Therefore it is, I say, that the enchanted ground is placed so nigh to the land Beulah, and so near the end of their race. Wherefore let pilgrims look to themselves, lest it happen to them as it has done to these that, as you see, are fallen asleep, and none can awake them. Then the pilgrims desired with trembling to go forward, only they prayed their guide to strike a light, that they might go the rest of their way by the help of the light of a lantern. So he struck a light, and they went by the help of that through the rest of this way, though the darkness was very great. 2 Peter 1:19. But the children began to be sorely weary, and they cried out unto him that loveth pilgrims to make their way more comfortable. So by that they had gone a little further, a wind arose that drove away the fog, so the air became more clear. Yet they were not off by much of the enchanted ground. Only now they could see one another better and the way wherein they should walk. Now, when they were almost at the end of this ground, they perceived that a little before them was a solemn noise, as of one that was much concerned. So they went on and looked before them, and behold, they saw, as they thought, a man upon his knees, with hands and eyes lifted up, and speaking, as they thought, earnestly to one that was above. They drew nigh, but could not tell what he said. So they went softly till he had done. When he had done, he got up and began to run towards the celestial city. Then Mr. Greatheart called after him, saying, So ho, friend, let us have your company, if you go, as I suppose you do, to the celestial city. So the man stopped, and they came up to him. But as soon as Mr. Honest saw him, he said, I know this man. Then said Mr. Valiant for truth, Prithee, who is it? Prithee, who is it? It is one, said he, that comes from whereabout I dwelleth. His name is Steadfast. His name is Stand Fast. He is certainly a right good pilgrim. His name is Stand Fast. He is certainly a right good pilgrim. So they came up to one another, and presently Stand Fast said to Old Honest, Oh, Father Honest, are you there? Aye, said he, that I am, as sure as you are there. Right glad am I, said Mr. Standfast, that I have found you on this road. And as glad am I, said the other, that I espied you on your knees. Then Mr. Standfast blushed and said, But why did you see me? But why did you see me? But why did you see me? Yes, that I did, quoth the other, and with my heart was glad at the sight. Why, what did you think? Said Standfast. Think, said Old Honest. What could I think? I thought we had an honest man upon the road, and therefore should have his company by and by. If you thought not amiss, said Standfast, how happy am I! But if I be not as I should, it is I alone must bear it. That is true, said the other, but your fear doth further confirm me that things are right betwixt the Prince of Pilgrims and your soul. For he said, Blessed is the man that feareth always. Proverbs 28:14. Valiant for truth. Well, but, brother, I pray thee, tell us, what was it that was the cause of thy being upon thy knees even now? Was it for that some special mercy laid obligations upon thee, or how? Stand fast. Why, we are, as you see, upon the enchanted ground, and As I was coming along, I was musing with myself of what a dangerous nature the road in this place was, and how many that had come even thus far on pilgrimage had here been stopped and been destroyed. I thought also of the manner of the death with which this place destroyeth men. Those that die here die of no violent distemper. The death which such die is not grievous to them, for he that goeth away in a sleep begins the journey with desire and pleasure. Yeah, such acquiesce in the will that disease. Mr. Honest. Then Mr. Honest, interrupting him, said, "Did you see the two men asleep in the arbor? Stand fast." Aye, aye, I saw heedless and too bold there, and for aught I know, there they will lie till they rot. Proverb 10:7. But let me go on with my tale. As I was thus musing, as I said, there was one in very pleasant attire but old, who presented herself to me and offered me three things, to wit, her body, her purse, and her bed. Now the truth is, I was both weary and sleepy. I am also as poor as an owlet, and that perhaps the witch knew. Well, I repulsed her once and again, but she put by my repulses and smiled. Then I began to be angry, but she mattered that nothing at all. Then she made offers again and said, if I would be ruled by her, she would make me great and happy. For, said she, I am the mistress of the world, and men are made happy by me. Then I asked her name, and she told me it was Madam Bubble. This set me further from her, but she still followed me with enticements. Then I betook me, as you saw, to my knees, and with hands lifted up and cries, I prayed to him that had said he would help. So, just as you came up, the gentle woman went her way. Then I continued to give thanks for this my great deliverance, for I verily believe she intended no good, but rather sought to make stop of me in my journey. Mr. Honest. With no doubt her designs were bad, but stay, now you talk of her, methinks I either have seen her or have read some story of her. Stand fast, perhaps you have done both. Mr. Honest. Madam Bubble. Is she not a tall, comely dame, something of a swarthy complexion? Stand fast. Right, you hit it. She is just such a one. Mr. Honest. Does she not speak very smoothly and give you a smile at the end of a sentence? Stand fast. You fall right upon it again, for these are her very actions. Mr. Honest. Doth she not wear a great purse with her side, and is not her hand often in it, fingering her money as if that was her heart's delight? Stand fast. It is just so. Had she stood by all this while, you could not more amply have set her forth before him, nor have better described her features. Mr. Honest. Then he that drew her picture was a good limner, and he that wrote of her said true. Mr. Greatheart. This woman is a witch, and it is by virtue of her sorceries that this ground is enchanted. Whoever doth lay his head down in her lap had as good lay it down on that block over which the axe doth hang, and whoever lay their eyes upon her beauty are counted the enemies of God. This is she that maintaineth in their splendor all those that are the enemies of pilgrims. James 4:4. Yeah, this is she that has brought off many a man from a pilgrim's life. She is a great gossiper. She is always, both she and her daughters, at one pilgrim's heels or another, now commending and then preferring the excellences of this life. She is a bold and impudent slut. She will talk with any man. She always laugheth poor pilgrims to scorn, but highly commends the rich. If there be one cunning to get money in a place, she will speak well of him from house to house. She loveth banqueting and feasting mainly well. She is always at one full table or another. She has given it out in some places that she is a goddess, and therefore some do worship her. She has her time and open places of cheating, and she will say and avow it, that none can show a good comparable to hers. She promiseth to dwell with children's children, if they will but love her and make much of her. She will cast out of her purse gold like dust in some places, and to some persons she loves to be sought after, spoken well of, and to lie in the bosoms of men. She is never weary of commending her commodities, and she loves them most that think best of her. She will promise to some crowns and kingdoms, if they will but take her advice. Yet many has she brought to the halter, and 10,000 times more to hell. And 10,000 times more to hell. Stand fast. Oh, said Standfast, what a mercy is it that I did resist her, for with her might she have drawn me. Mr. Greatheart, with her? Nay, none but God knows with her. But in general, to be sure, she would have drawn thee into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. 1 Timothy 6:9. It was she that set Absalom against his father. It was she that set Absalom against his father, and Jeroboam against his master. It was she that persuaded Judas to sell his Lord, and that prevailed with Demas to forsake the godly pilgrim's life. None can tell of the mischief that she doth. She makes variance betwixt rulers and subjects, betwixt parents and children, betwixt neighbor and neighbor, betwixt a man and his wife, betwixt a man and himself, betwixt the flesh and the spirit. Wherefore, good Mr. Standfast, be as your name is, and when you have done all, stand. At this discourse, there was among the pilgrims a mixture of joy and trembling, but at length they brake out and sang. At length they broke out and sang. What danger is the pilgrim in? How many are his foes? How many ways there are to sin? No living mortal knows. Some in the ditch are spoiled, ye can lie tumbling in the mire. Some, though they shun the frying pan, do leap into the fire.